Elon Musk settled into the leather chair, his posture relaxed, yet his mind sharp as ever. Across from him, Joe Rogan leaned forward, his signature microphone angled just right, the neon blue studio lights reflecting in his eyes. They had done this dance before, talking about AI, Neuralink, space colonization, the grand vision of the future. The audience expected a mix of tech optimism and eccentric tangents. But this time, something was different. As the cameras rolled and the show began, Musk spoke in his usual measured tone, discussing the challenges of interplanetary travel. Rogan nodded, threw in a few questions about Mars colonies, the economics of space expansion, standard fare. The audience settled in for what they assumed would be another deep, intellectual exchange. Then Musk shifted. He brought up inefficiencies, not in space travel, but in something far more earthly. Government contracts, billion-dollar misallocations, funds vanishing into the void without scrutiny. It was a departure from his usual topics, but his tone remained factual, detached, as if he were discussing a new Tesla prototype. At first, Rogan played along. He had spent years perfecting the art of making guests comfortable, letting them talk. But as Musk continued, detailing how certain non-governmental organizations acted as the perfect conduits for untraceable transactions, Rogan's demeanor changed. His nods became slower, his usual enthusiasm dialed down. Musk explained it methodically, like he was presenting a formula. A system where money moved effortlessly, unchecked, under the guise of humanitarian efforts. Some NGOs, he pointed out, had grown more powerful than nations, channeling funds through layers of bureaucracy that no auditor could ever fully untangle. It was a trillion-dollar siphon, clean, legal, and invisible to the public. Rogan shifted in his seat, fingers tapping the table, a subtle tension forming in his shoulders. It was the kind of unease that seasoned viewers would pick up on. He asked a question, but it felt off, too careful, too rehearsed. He wasn't probing like he usually did. It was as if he was trying to nudge the conversation back onto familiar ground, away from whatever Musk was leading toward. But Musk wasn't interested in veering away. He laid it out, how small seed investments in certain nonprofits could be leveraged into billions in taxpayer funds, how these organizations, masked in benevolence, had become unregulated financial machines. He didn't name names, yet, but he didn't need to. The implications were enough. Then, just as he was about to press further, the screen cut to black. A commercial break. It was abrupt, unnatural. Long-time listeners knew Rogan's style, he let guests talk, let them ramble for hours. But this? This was different. The break came mid-sentence, not at a natural stopping point. It was as if someone had pulled a lever, forcing a reset. When the feed returned, the mood had shifted. Rogan was smiling, his usual easygoing presence restored. He steered the conversation elsewhere, something lighter, maybe AI ethics, or the state of social media. Whatever it wasn't what Musk had been talking about. Musk let it happen, but his expression had changed. The slight furrow of his brow, the flicker of awareness behind his eyes, he knew. This wasn't just an overzealous producer deciding to cut for time. It was something else. As the episode neared its conclusion, Musk leaned back in his chair. His tone was casual, almost amused, but the weight of his words hung in the air. If I disappear after this, you'll know why. There was a moment of silence, just long enough for it to sink in. Then, as if on cue, Rogan chuckled, shaking his head, brushing it off as another one of Musk's dramatic remarks. The show wrapped up, the cameras powered down, and the internet exploded. Clips surfaced immediately, Musk's words dissected, analyzed, amplified. Theories spread like wildfire. Some called it paranoia. Others weren't so sure. They had seen the break, felt the shift in tone. Something had happened. Something had changed. But by the time most people started to truly process it, the full interview was already disappearing. Sections were being edited, removed, flagged for content review. The official upload? Shortened, reshuffled. It was only the beginning. The morning after the podcast, social media was in chaos. Clips of Musk's cryptic warning, "If I disappear after this, you'll know why," flooded every platform. Memes, debates, and conspiracy theories exploded in every corner of the internet. But something strange was happening. Within hours, the original video began to disappear. First, it was subtle. Users reported playback errors, missing timestamps. Then, full sections of the conversation were cut from the official uploads. Musk's discussion about NGOs, financial loopholes, and invisible empires? Gone. Even third-party re-uploads started mysteriously vanishing, flagged for content review or violation of terms. Yet, the harder the platforms tried to erase it, the more determined the internet became to preserve it. Encrypted forums, torrent sites, and private chat rooms turned into digital battlegrounds. Someone, or something, wanted the full truth buried. And then, Musk received the message. 2 words, sent from an unknown number. Stop. Now. He dismissed it at first. Another empty threat, another attempt to intimidate him. He had faced worse. He continued as usual, posting memes, engaging with Tesla engineers, and reviewing SpaceX blueprints. Business as usual. But then, the real attacks began. Without warning, his personal and corporate accounts were locked. Tesla's liquidity was questioned, auditors suddenly scrutinizing records with a new level of intensity. Regulatory agencies, long indifferent to his ventures, demanded immediate compliance on years of untouched filings. Then came the flight restrictions. His private jet, a symbol of his ability to move freely across the world, was suddenly denied airspace clearance. No explanation. No precedent. Just a bureaucratic wall that no amount of wealth or influence could break. Something larger was at play. At the same time, Joe Rogan's tone shifted. He stopped mentioning Musk. Stopped acknowledging the podcast's existence, despite the storm it had caused. When pressed, he laughed it off. Elon says crazy things sometimes, reducing the entire event to a joke. The laughter didn't reach his eyes. Interviews with other guests continued, but something felt different. His usual fearless, freewheeling attitude? Gone. His questions more reserved. His words more careful. Almost as if he was waiting for instructions. Then the leak happened. A grainy, shaky video surfaced on an underground forum. No timestamps, no metadata, just footage of Rogan, seated in a high-rise conference room, speaking with 2 unidentified men. The conversation had no audio, but his expressions were unmistakable. Serious. Focused. Nervous. A piece of paper was slid across the table. He scanned it. Paused. Then nodded. The forum erupted. Speculation ran wild. Who were they? Government officials? Corporate power brokers? Intelligence agents? Had Rogan been briefed before the interview? Had he known what to suppress, when to cut away? The same platforms that had aggressively censored Musk's claims allowed this leak to spread. Almost as if someone wanted the focus shifted. Distraction or revelation? The question hung in the air, unanswered. Musk watched it unfold, expression unreadable. The game had changed. And the mask had slipped. The world had changed overnight. The leak of Rogan's secret meeting was a firestorm, but Musk knew it wasn't enough. Suspicion alone wouldn't crack the system, it needed proof. Undeniable, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. He turned to X. His first move was subtle. A cryptic post, "Follow the money." Then came the payload. A thread, encrypted documents, declassified financial transactions, satellite images of government properties linked to shadow NGOs. Musk didn't just speculate, he named names, showed bank routes, and traced funds disappearing into tax havens. It wasn't a leak. It was a declaration of war. Within minutes, the response was swift. Fact-check warnings slapped onto his posts. Misinformation tags appearing in real time. A full-scale media blackout, major outlets suddenly had technical issues when trying to report on it. But it was too late. His followers had seen. Downloaded. Archived. The data was out. Then, the unexpected. Joe Rogan sent an open invitation, another podcast. Live. Unedited. No breaks. No commercial cuts. A rematch. Musk accepted. The moment the cameras rolled, the tension was electric. Gone was Rogan's usual relaxed energy, the casual jokes, the whiskey and cigars. This was something different. The world was watching. Musk didn't waste time. Who made you stop me last time? Why is this podcast still up, but the key parts were erased? What do you know that I don't? Rogan listened, silent. No deflection. No jokes. He didn't interrupt, didn't offer his usual counterpoints. Then, he leaned forward. A smirk. A slow shake of the head. You think you're fighting the system, his expression seemed to say, but the system is always 5 moves ahead. The game wasn't about exposing corruption. The game was about making Musk think he ever had a chance. And that's when Elon realized, he hadn't been setting the fire. He had been following the breadcrumbs they left for him. The hammer fell fast. Within 24 hours of Musk's explosive second podcast, his name was everywhere, but not in the way his supporters had hoped. The Department of Justice opened an official investigation into Tesla, SpaceX, and Neuralink. Regulatory agencies swarmed his companies with audits, lawsuits, and compliance demands. The official reason? National security concerns. Unsealed documents alleged that Tesla's international dealings could pose a cyber threat. SpaceX was now a matter of classified aerospace interests. Neuralink? Suddenly a medical ethics disaster. Musk wasn't being exposed. He was being erased. Yet, something even stranger was happening behind the scenes. 77,000 government employees resigned overnight. A wave of mass exits, exactly as Musk had hinted at weeks ago. But the headlines didn't frame it as a scandal. The media called it voluntary restructuring. Just normal bureaucratic turnover. Nothing to see here. His followers weren't buying it. Something had triggered the exodus. Musk went on the offensive again, using X to call for deeper digging. His community of researchers, coders, and financial analysts swarmed public records, dark web leaks, and internal documents. A new theory surfaced: these weren't normal resignations. These were preemptive disappearances. Government insiders, contractors, NGO figures, all leaving at once, like rats fleeing a sinking ship. And then there was Joe Rogan. Rogan, who had never shied away from controversy, was suddenly silent. No public appearances. No follow-ups. His social media activity dwindled. He cancelled scheduled guests, avoided reporters, refused to comment. It wasn't just hesitation. It was fear. Then, the final blow landed. A hacker leaked a classified document, Operation Chokehold. A deep state playbook detailing how the government controlled influential voices. Podcasters, journalists, social media personalities, all flagged, monitored, and, when necessary, redirected. It wasn't about silencing dissent. It was about controlling it. And there, buried in the list, was Joe Rogan's name. The world watched as the trap finally closed. But the real question wasn't whether Musk had lost. It was whether he had ever really been fighting to win. It was billed as the most important conversation of the decade. Joe Rogan had announced it himself, one final, unfiltered conversation with Elon Musk. No corporate overlords. No studio interference. No cuts. The internet erupted. For weeks, the speculation had grown unbearable. Was Rogan compromised? Was Musk a fugitive? Had they been puppets in a grander game all along? Everyone had their theories. Now, it was time for answers. The countdown to the live stream began, the numbers climbing into the millions before the feed even started. Then, as the clock hit 0, the screen flickered. The studio was dim. No laughter. No cigars. No whiskey. Just two men sitting across from each other, one carrying the weight of something unspoken, the other looking at him like he already knew the answer. The world watched, waiting. Musk wasted no time. Did Rogan know all along? His opponent barely reacted. But the subtle tells were there. A twitch in his jaw. A moment of hesitation. The air in the studio felt dense, suffocating. Musk pushed harder. Was he willingly part of it, or just another puppet? Rogan exhaled, slow and steady. His hands reached for something under the table. A single sheet of paper, already prepared. He picked it up, eyes scanning the words written before he had even spoken. A pre-written statement. A script. The illusion shattered. Musk moved first. The cameras jolted as he cut the feed. The broadcast scrambled, the signal flickering to black. But in those final seconds, as the system collapsed around them, one last message made it through. This system only works if you believe in it. Stop believing. Then, silence. Epilogue. The fallout was instant. Confusion. Outrage. Fear. The biggest interview in history had ended in a blackout, leaving nothing but questions. By morning, Musk was gone. No trace. No updates. No records of where he went. Rogan resurfaced days later, denouncing the entire event. Musk had lost it, he claimed. Paranoia had consumed him. It was a sad ending, really. A billionaire genius spiraling into conspiracy, his empire crumbling under delusions. The world moved on. The headlines shifted. The news cycle refreshed. Another scandal. Another distraction. And then, 6 months later, a single post appeared on X. No name. No attribution. Just words. We were never talking about Elon versus Joe. We were talking about you versus them. Phase 2 begins now. The world froze.